Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to another episode of a Perambulate with Picard. So today I am going to be talking about episode 8, which is Broken Pieces, which went out over this weekend. And it's sort of continuing to reveal things about the overarching plot. There's some very talky scenes in this one, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and they're well performed. But we're seeing a bit here of what we saw in the Doctor Who finale, to be quite honest with you, in that, deep secrets from the past are revealed in expository dialogue. That being said, I like the ideas that are revealed here. So we find out that eons ago, I think the figure 200,000 years is bandied about, there was a society which created synthetic life, and that synthetic life turned on them, and so they've set up a warning for all others. The Romulans have discovered this, or at least the Zat Vash have discovered this, and so that is what makes their mission to destroy synthetic life. And, I quite like that the Zat Vash have a reason for what they're doing. It's not just a distrust. They actually have evidence of, look, this is what has happened to a culture before now. And the idea of reaching a cultural threshold where this kind of thing happens is something we see in science fiction a fair bit. And also, Star Trek The Next Generation was always, well, I say always, at least 3 or 4 times, doing things with ancient cultures, who are long gone, but we discovered the technology, or we discovered the remnants of them. I'm thinking the Iconians, I'm thinking the progenitors. So it's a nice nod to Picard's interest in archaeology and past cultures without that being an explicit thing. We also discovered this week that Agnes was not trying to kill herself, she was just trying to destroy the tracker within herself in order to save everyone, and she gets a little bit of redemption this week. I've said before, and I will definitely say it now, I'm glad they've gone down the path of her being, if you like, a misguided patriot, rather than, a deliberate double agent who is working to betray everyone. And I also like that from Commodore O's point of view, she's doing the right thing. Star Trek quite often will do this where, like all good villains, they don't believe they're being villainous. I think there's a runner coming up behind me. And even though we don't see Commodore O, we see her flashbacks, we find out that she has sort of programmed Agnes to find it difficult to talk about what she discovered. And the actress Alison Pill, I think, playing Agnes Jurati, does such an amazing job here. And again, it goes uncommented, but she goes from being, a character who's quite timid to arguably being one of the bravest people on the ship, because when she realised she was a danger to everyone else, she put herself in great risk to get rid of that tracker. Michelle Hurd does an amazing job. Pardon me. Michelle Hurd does an amazing job as Raffi in this episode, as she tries to find out why Soji disturbs Rios so much. And her scene with Rios's various holograms, talking to them individually at first and then getting them together in a group. I love Raffi here because this is kind of her training as a security officer, as a tactical officer, to kind of piece together this mystery around Rios. Rios himself has some very good scenes, but for me this whole plotline is really a chance for Raffi to shine. It's funny, as I was watching, I kind of got my continuities mixed up. And just got someone passing on a bicycle. Wait here a sec. Yeah, I kind of got my continuities mixed up because, of course, in the comics, Data takes over B4's body, becomes a captain, and when Rios is talking about, a captain he served, and then he's freaked out by a synth, I thought, oh my god, Data was Rios's captain. And in the moment I thought that, I went, oh! And my partner said, what? And I suddenly realised I was thinking the wrong continuity, and he hasn't read the comics, and I'm just like, oh, it's nothing. But, instead we find out that Rios's captain had to kill 2 synths, and Rios's disappointment in him caused him to take his own life. And then Rios is drummed out of the service, much the same way that Raffi was. And I think both of them say that within 6 months they were drummed out of the service. For, in his case, what he knew about the synths on board his old ship, and in her case, for trying to investigate the synth uprising. So I'm wondering if there's still more duplicity on Starfleet's behalf that has yet to be explored. We get a beautiful scene between Soji and Picard where they talk about Data. And Isa Briones does an amazing job as Soji here. Really holding her own against Patrick Stewart, and their discussion of emotionality and love, and just that closing moment where she tells Picard that Data loved him. I don't know, I'm getting a bit of a lump in my throat now. And just Patrick Stewart's reaction to that, just the shock of hearing that, is just beautifully performed. Like, I know I've said this is very talky and expository. That scene, though, is very core Star Trek for me. So, kudos. Kudos to everyone involved for that. Meanwhile, on the Borg Cube, back at the ranch, 7 of 9 does come in to rescue Elnor. And I have to say at this point, I'm really enjoying Evan's performance as Elnor. He is the most underserved character of all the regulars. He's even getting less to do than 7, and 7 is a guest cast member. I hope they've got something interesting for him coming up, because there's not much point to him being there at the moment. He's just kind of, acting as a foil. Like, if he wasn't there, 7 would have no one to talk to in this episode. The only time he's really got to do character stuff was back in Stardust City Rag. Maybe he'll get more to do in the closing of the season. I really hope so, because, as I say, I like his performance. I like his sort of naivety and honesty, which are, hallmarks of the character. I'm going to go down this way, because sometimes that crossing just decides it's not gonna trigger. That being said, the scenes with 7 on the Borg ship, really, really well done. 7 being willing to re-enter the collective, obviously has an emotional effect on her. As does the idea of taking away these drones' individuality. And then her pain and outrage when so many of them are sent off into space. Although, point of order, in First Contact, they were able to survive being in space, but maybe that's because, modifications and what have you. But I got the impression from that scene that all the dormant Borg were flushed out into space, and yet 7 is able to take control of a bunch of them at the end of the episode. Elnor asking, what, are you going to assimilate me now? Well, Elnor, you're the one who said, why don't you control all the Borg and use them against us? You don't get to complain now. And it's just it's a bit of a mawkish line, in my opinion. Just walking past something very loud. Yeah. So look, it's not bad stuff, it's just, there's not much point to Elnor being there. All he's really done in terms of his characterization at the moment is kind of fail to protect Hugh. He saved Picard a couple of weeks ago, that's great. twice I think, but yeah, I want to see more from the character. We do also have the return of Admiral Clancy this week, and she gets to drop another F-bomb. But as I said before with Clancy, she is a Starfleet Admiral who actually does her job, apparently. Like, as far as we know, she's not involved in any of the conspiracy. And yeah, once Picard presents her with evidence, she supports his plan after telling him to shut the F up. You know, she may end up being the best ever Starfleet Admiral. We'll see. But look, after a slow start to this season, I do think it is going much better in this back half of the season. I think we're building up to an interesting conclusion. And yeah, it just remains to see what is going on. I do have two theories. One is, so it appears the synths are all based on Soji and Darja's basic template, because Jana looked like her as well when Rios encountered her. And Rios also talked about a man being with them. And at first I thought, the man will be based on Data's template. But I thought Data is so famous in Starfleet that Rios would have recognized him. I'm wondering if Elnor is the other template, and that's what we're building towards. And the reason Picard was never able to find Elnor's family is because they don't exist. Because Elnor has that kind of Data-ishness to him. So, we'll see if I'm right on either of those as we build towards the finale. Until then, I will be uploading later this week my Future of Doctor Who video. It's just taking a little long to edit than I would have liked. Let me know down in there in the comments what you thought of Star Trek Picard Broken Pieces. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and make sure you wash your hands.